Hey everyone, MC82 here. So, a little bit of history. When I was just a little Ninja Turtle fan back in the 80s, I had the toys and the accessories just like everyone else. And while Playmates eventually released Sewer and Technodrome playsets, like so many of their releases, it wasn't anything close to the cartoon that I watched every day. Fast forward 30 years, and here we are with NECA, who has done right by the license, and they have proceeded to rob our bank accounts with a continuous string of Ninja Turtle releases based on the original animated series. And now NECA is releasing a street scene toon diorama to help display them all. Like many of you, I pre ordered this thing last year, which meant we had a long wait before its arrival. So I decided that in the meantime, it would be fun to build a complimentary diorama of the turtle's sewer lair in the Technodrome. Mind you, this is my very first attempt at something like this, and I already knew I was working with a very limited skill set and resources. And as you will see, I am definitely not an expert. You'll find plenty of YouTube creators who are far more skilled at creating dioramas, so you should check those guys out if you're looking for any real tips. So with that out of the way, let's get started. So as you can see, we're just staring at a really boring cheap Farino turning tube shelf. But I love these shelves because they don't require any tools and you can put them together in a few minutes. It's perfect for what I'm trying to do, as I'll have 4 solid spaces to work with. My strengths do not lie in cutting and airbrushing large pieces of foam, so I've opted to design everything on screen. To start, I've got a nice little brick background, and since this is a sewer, I'm throwing on a splatter layer to give the bricks a little bit of depth and variety. Next, I've added a gradient overlay to bring out the blacks and browns as the wall meets the ceiling. Next up, we're adding a couple of areas of exposed wall followed by the main entrance. After giving it a gradient color foundation, I'm repeating the same texture that I used on the brick. Now that I've cut out the entrance and added some bolts for detail, we'll wrap this part up. Now, when I was younger, my ego would have said to create an exit sign. But now that I'm older and wiser, I just simply downloaded one from Google. Ditto for the stop sign, though I did add a little shading around the edges so that it didn't look so flat. Moving right along, it was time to create the frame and picture that hangs on their wall. And it has that 3-headed monster, which I've been told is called a Ghidorah. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But instead of using the relatively simplified painting that is shown in their lair, I decided to grab a more realistic version. Once again, Google is your best friend. The mirror is next, and to save time, I just copied the frame that I used for Ghidorah and swapped out the picture for a light gray gradient. I added a few white streaks to give it a glassy look, and for all of these wall decorations, I made sure to measure so I could place them properly on the wall. I didn't want the turtles to be too tall or too short for how they related to where these objects were on the wall. So then I added a pipe that hangs overhead. Most diorama builders usually construct this part, but I'm trying to stay away from doing things like that. And last but not least, I'm adding a background layer in the entrance to give that area some much needed depth. It's a lot better than just having a black void. With the living room done, the kitchen becomes fairly easy. I'm reusing most of the background elements, but the sewer pipe is being used to house the kitchen shelves that I've made using simple rectangles and geometry. I've also put a wood texture overlay. Some cups and bowls and kitchenware round out this panel. Moving on to the Technodrome, I'm not really pulling from any one source, as it's varied over time with the cartoons and games. The goal here is to get something that resembles the trans-dimensional portal room. As usual, I start off with a gradient and some basic shapes to fill out the wall. From there, it's on to creating the outline of the portal itself. Adding in a few brackets and shading to the framework, the portal itself is a combination of a gradient and a swirly background that I found on, once again, Google. To round out this panel, I've added a few more layers of circuitry to the walls, and finally a little bit more light from the portal to shine on the inner frame. For this next room, I wanted it to be a foot soldier centered theme kind of room. So I created 4 glass panels, and then I added a frame through a silhouette of a few machines in the background. After that, I took a picture of one of my foot soldiers and duplicated it a few times and blended them to appear behind the glass. As you can see, the basic wall is the same one I used in the portal room. That pretty much wraps up this room. I created several more panels for the side walls and floors of each room, and I've printed and mounted them on thin foam board. Now this is the same board that you would use for a science fair project. It's cheap and it can be found in several major chains like Walmart. Sliding in all of these panels is relatively easy. I'm just using regular tape to keep a few things in place. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done, and certainly you can use a more permanent solution if you choose. Now that we're done, we need to add some furniture and a few more details. Once again, the internet is your best friend, and I have found a lot of unbelievable miniature furniture builders on Amazon, eBay, and Etsy. I found a great couch and love seat combination in the admittedly hard to find colors that you see in the turtle's lair. Found a good small floor lamp that even lights up. This custom television set was created by a guy named Omar Romero, and you can find him in the various Ninja Turtle and NECA Facebook groups. I'm not sure if he's still making these, but if you find him, support that man's work. You will not be disappointed. Also got a nice white kitchen set from Amazon, including a refrigerator, a stove, and a sink. And I got some table and chairs as well. I cut and taped a napkin with this checkerboard pattern that kind of resembles the tablecloth the turtles use in their own kitchen. Now, I had to be a little bit more resourceful for the Technodrome. So I used some old paper towel rolls and I wrapped them up with the excess graphics that I used for the interior. The base caps are just the tube tops that I received when I got the art prints back. Finally, I added some extra puck lights that I had lying around. Now let's get to the real star of the show, NECA's TMNT Street Scene Toon Diorama. First thing you'll notice is there's no box art. That makes me sad. This thing is just housed in a plain box, and it's kind of disappointing for someone like me who remembers the awesome box art from the old playsets and vehicles. Ah well, at least the contents are wrapped and packaged very well, and hopefully there won't be any QC issues once I unpack everything. Putting this thing together wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Several pieces don't snap or fit as flush as depicted in the nearly 9 pages of instructions, and at times I felt like I was trying to force pieces in. There were several times where I questioned the engineering behind this diorama. This is especially true with the window panels. They don't sit very well within the walls. They appear to be loose, but thankfully it gives the brick a little bit of depth and variety along with some subtle tan and brown shades. Speaking of those bricks, NECA gives you about 40 loose bricks to fill in the various spaces on the diorama. This also gives you space for the various signs and accessories that you can plug into the walls. But once it all comes together, the diorama is quite a sight to behold. The color scheme matches the Toon aesthetic very well. The reversible sign looks like it was ripped straight out of the animated series, and there's enough variety in the structure to give each level a unique look and feel. The satellite antenna and billboard signs are great environmental additions for the upper levels, while the manhole cover and fire hydrant are a nice touch for the street level. So overall, despite a few headaches putting it together, NECA's Toon Diorama is a great display piece for all of your TMNT figures. even though it'll be a tight fit to show them all. And that's among the reasons I opted to build the sewer in Technodrome. I didn't want to display all of the figures standing together. I wanted the characters to stand out, to tell a little story with a mix of standoffs and action. I also wanted the chance to complete this scene now because it's going to be a while before we hear about the inevitable news of a NECA sewer or Technodrome diorama, and it'll be even longer before it's released. Despite having a sewer and a Technodrome set as a kid, I was always disappointed with how they appeared compared to the animated series, so this multi-level diorama fulfills an old childhood dream in a way. I hope everyone enjoyed this overview of the process in creating this custom diorama, and the review of NECA's Street Scene Toon diorama. I definitely want to do more diorama scenes with some of my other figures and statues, so if you like this video and you want to see more of that, hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.